Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining us today. Should I say morning? It's about 11:30 here in Austin, Texas. And today we're getting together to talk about a tenant outlook update. So every year, tenants' tastes change and the environment changes. And what you guys do as landlords or as investors needs to change as well to make sure you're relevant in the space. If you've got a house that's relevant to 1990, it is probably not going to be relevant to today. So we're here to talk about those things. And see what really tenants are looking for. Every good property manager or business owner should be polling their clients and customers to find out what they really want, to stay on top of their pulse as it changes through the year. So it is about time, 11:30 to get started. So if you guys don't mind, I'll invite our speakers up on the screen with us today. And today we have Erica and Melanie. Erica and Melanie are property managers with 1836 Property Management.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us today, ladies. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you okay.
Great. We want to make sure I'm not talking to myself alone today. I don't think anybody that invested the time would appreciate that. So if you guys don't mind, the outline of today's meeting is we're going to spend at least 30 minutes. Hopefully, we guarantee that we'll be done with questions, answers, anything else at an hour, no matter what we run into. So give us a little background to get started on who you guys are, what you do on a daily basis, and just introduce yourselves.
I'm Erica. I'm a property manager here at 1836. I've been about 4 years, I'd say. Handling everything day to day, leasing properties, finding tenants, working with owners, getting properties made ready for the market. We deal with maintenance that comes up on properties as well, any questions, concerns that come up with tenants and owners. The whole gamut, basically.
And I'm Melanie Price. I've been with 1836 also for about 3 years next month. Eric and I also recently got licensed last year, right?
A little bit longer for me.
Yeah, last year for me, a little bit longer for Erica. So we have a little bit more experience now also in real estate. Mm-hmm. And same thing day to day. We talk to tenants. We help lease your properties. We help with maintenance on the properties, make readies, all the good stuff. So
yeah, hopefully we can help today.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope you can as well. We're going to be in trouble if you can't and you're doing this on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So I'm adjusting some screens here so I can make sure I stay on top of things as we chat today. I guess the first thing is you mentioned that you were both licensed. So don't property managers have to be licensed?
Yeah. So we have to have that knowledge to be able to lease your property effectively. Yeah, absolutely.
So if you work for a property management firm in Texas, there are employees that can work there that under the authorization of a broker, they can follow the rules of that broker. And because they're acting on their employee duties or don't have to be licensed the same as an agent, but you guys are actually all licensed. So you're a little bit above and beyond what most property managers are doing. I'm sure it gives you a lot more context in order to interact with the agents that are coming across your radar.
Definitely. Mm-hmm. So we have a little bit more experience in dealing with those aspects as well, for sure.
Good deal. Well, looks like together, if I kind of calculate out y'all's experience, you've got unit years is something in the industry that people talk about. So in other words, if you managed 100 units for 1 year, that's the equivalent of one owner managing 1 unit for 100 years. So I think owners kind of underestimate the value of repetition and exposure because, well, they managed a house 5 years ago for a couple of years and it all went fine, which equals 2 unit years. So I think if I do the math on you guys on the side, you're up to like 320 and 280 unit years of experience in just a short amount of time because you guys see so much volume on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that at this point, nothing new ever really comes up for you guys.
Yeah, every now and again, actually, you know, something out of left field keeps us on our toes, but we've seen a lot. So most things we've experienced at some point.
Between the two of us.
Between the two of us, that's true. So maybe she's done something that I might not have, but we work so closely together that, you know, we can always bounce ideas and thoughts off of each other. Yeah.
So you guys are saying that even after the equivalent of 600 unit years of experience, you're still seeing things new.
Yeah. New maintenance things that we've never seen before. Tenant issues, honestly, that have come up that haven't come up before. So it happens. But we have that background knowledge to know kind of the right way to go about solving the issue for whether it's the owner or the tenant. Yeah.
So you guys are, just to give people perspective, you guys are organized a little bit differently than most companies. Most companies have a property manager, and they call that portfolio style. That property manager has per se 150 units, and that's all they deal with is those 150 units. And if they get hit by a bus, well, I'm not sure what they do with it. How do you guys, how's your structure different than that?
Yeah, so Melanie and I are basically senior property managers. We also have other property managers. We each have another property manager that we work closely with because we have our, we have teams basically. So we split up the properties that we have. I've got a set of properties, Melanie has a set of properties, and we each have another property manager that assists us. And then we also have another assistant property manager that helps us with answering phones, other aspects that we can, documents and stuff like that. And then we share a maintenance manager as well that kind of helps us with all of the maintenance coordination and dispatching invoices.
So I think it's a little unique because you guys not only have maintenance support, but you've got a hierarchy of duties. And so, people are going to wonder what the answer is to this. So I'm going to ask it, even though it's a little morbid. But what happens if somebody gets hit by a bus? I mean, what happens to that investor who has 20 properties that's been talking to you for 5 years?
Yeah, and that's the beauty of having that team.
Yeah.
So there's some continuity with all this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there is that continuity. So the other people on our team know what's going on. They're kept in the loop the whole time. So if somebody gets sick or if somebody's out, there's always a constant person, or there are people working on that property for the owner and for the tenant. So there's no gap in time.
It sounds kind of nice. You guys haven't brought it up, but as well, if you've got people moving up in the ranks from an assistant or a junior position to senior, they're going to have a lot more experience than interviewing somebody off the street and going, "Hey, welcome, you're a property manager today because you got hired."
Definitely.
So I think having some years under your belt and exposure to these problems that come up is really going to make a difference down the road for those senior managers.
I think so. Yeah, definitely. That's the goal.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the target. So, well, let's dig into this. So you guys did a focus group report on your tenants.
Yep.
I'm sure you'll do one on your owners that you'll want to share at some point in time. And you touched base with them at the end of the last year, beginning of this year, and just said, what do you guys want? Who are you? And what's important to you? What are you all about? Why are you renting? What does that look like to you? And what's your experience? And so I've got some of these questions that you guys shared with me, and I'll let you guys go over the results for our viewers today. But let's start with the first one. What did you guys think? That the first one was, how long have you been renting your property? What did y'all find?
Yeah. Well, as we thought, a lot of renters are only here for about 0 to 2 years. That was about 80% of the people that we polled, of the tenants that we polled. And then about almost 20% was 3 to 5 years for how long they're staying in a property.
What's that mean to the owner?
Yeah, well, a lot of tenants are, they don't know really where they want to go yet. So they have a lot of options as well. So we want to make sure that we are keeping tenants in place for as long as possible to eliminate vacancy. Turnover costs can be really high, utilities, for example. So we want to make sure we keep tenants as long as possible to keep money flowing to the owner.
Yeah, I mean, the turnover cost, again, like she said, is super costly. So, I mean, that's making the property ready after that tenant moves out. That's releasing the property, so having to pay leasing fees, which is a huge expense. Just a lost rent in general for however long it's going to take you to get the property ready and then find a new tenant. I mean, it can cost thousands of dollars. Yeah.
So it sounds like if you keep that tenant in place year to year, you're just erasing those expenses almost.
Exactly. That's the goal, to keep them there as long as possible.
Or space them out as long as possible.
So what do you guys think that the owner should do with that extra money? Go on vacation?
No,
No.
no, hold on to that. We want owners to put away a percentage of the money they receive for maintenance alone to maintain their property, keep it and invest it, basically. So maintenance is going to happen, so you need to be prepared for those types of issues that arise.
Good deal. Well, let's run to the next one. So what's the primary reason you guys found that tenants are renting? Why are they renting and not buying?
So we pulled 4 of the biggest responses out of the survey, and the first one was that tenants just aren't ready to buy, and that was about 23%. And we feel like this is the type of person that is probably going to stay a little bit longer. They know where they want to be, but they're just, they're not mentally ready. Maybe their status, they're not married or have kids yet. So the next one was they're new to the area. So that was about 17.5%. These are going to be people that may not stay very long. So they're kind of just playing it out and seeing, if they like this area, and they may, once they're familiar with the area, they might move on to something else. The third one was they were in college or transition state. So as most of y'all probably know, Austin is a big college town. We have UT, and so that was 15.7%. Again, these people aren't probably going to stay a long time. They're going to probably, a year or two just while they're in school or transitioning to their next property. And then the last one was saving to buy a house. So that's 12%. And these are also going to probably be people that are going to stay a little bit longer and just save money while they're trying to buy a house.
Nice, nice. So that at least gives us a breakdown of who we're dealing with.
Yeah.
When it comes to the tenants that are out there and that may want to rent your investment property. So from the tenant's perspective, question number 3 that was asked was, what is the most frustrating aspect of renting a home versus owning a home? So not what problems are you having, but if you do want to buy, or when you think about buying, what makes that more attractive than renting? What are your frustrations, and what did you guys find in that area?
Yeah, we had a large group of people that said that they're not able to customize the home or remodel it like they would like to. Like in a purchased home, you can change the countertops if you'd like. You can paint the bedroom whatever color you want. You can install a pool in the backyard. And with renting, you don't have that ability to do that. So that's one of the things that people are looking for when they do buy a home. And also when they're paying rent and not putting equity into paying a mortgage, getting equity out of that home. So those types of things, they are frustrating that they are renting, and they wish that they could own a home to be able to do those things that they would like to the house and actually put money towards purchasing that home. So we have to make sure that the property is in as best condition as we can when it's being rented, because I know they'll want to do something to it, but it's
and it'll appeal to the masses.
Exactly.
So you don't want one purple accent wall because
yes,
you liked it, or because your previous tenant wanted a purple accent wall and you didn't paint it back. So the next people that come in may not like that.
Yeah.
So it seems to me like as a management company, you're saying no a lot to tenants, but yet as a landlord that self-manages, you may be willing to cave on some of these items, not knowing that it's going to come back to bite you later when that purple wall is left at move out. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you want to make sure that the property is in a condition that would appeal to everybody, not somebody that can accept an orange bedroom. And then you're going to have that cost again to have to repaint it to make it more appealing to everybody that's renting the property. So yeah, we see those things, and we have steps in place like, okay, well, if we can get approval on what color you want to paint it, but we've got stipulations like it's got to be painted back and all of those kind of things. So
by a professional,
not your brother,
So you guys don't let tenants paint the walls just because it's Friday and they want to paint the walls?
Right, exactly. Because it's the owner's property and it's an investment. So we have to think more long-term than just today too.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So next question, we're chopping along pretty good, is what are the features that you wish came standard with your rental? What did your tenants tell you?
So standard meaning they're not having to pay extra for this and it's included in the rent, but the top one was appliances, and this is going to be more like washer, dryer, refrigerator. It's not going to be oven, dishwasher. Those are things that are built into the property and we would hope would come with every property, but the things that are going to be, you know, up to you to leave in is the washer, dryer, and refrigerator. And those are the things that was almost 16% of people wanted that to be included in the property without having to pay extra for it. And then the second biggest response was lawn maintenance. So basically these tenants, I feel like, are saying they want to be able to move in and just not have to worry about anything. They want everything to be there when they get there, and they want everything to be taken care of. They don't want to have to put any extra effort into it more than they would have to already. Mm-hmm. So that was about 16%.
I'm making some notes because I'm learning some things as we go through this, and I'm pulling some items out of it too. So what I find interesting about the question is, you said, what do you wish came standard with your rental? But I bet there's a large portion of your rentals that already have appliances. So those tenants may have not answered that question specific for appliances because they already came with them.
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
What do you guys think about appliances? Do you think owners should supply them, not supply them? What do you think?
Hands down, they should be supplied. I mean, it's a great selling feature. Yes, tenants can rent or buy a washer and dryer, but that's just an extra expense on the tenant. You want your property to be as attractive as possible while on the market. So if you've got these appliances, it makes your property stand out, especially a refrigerator. Tenants do not typically lug around a refrigerator from property to property because so many of the times it's specific to the space. So we really recommend that if we're going to put a property on the market, it has those appliances on site already to make it as attractive as possible.
So the truth is, the rubber meets the road at money, right? People make decisions because this is an investment based on money. So the question arises, have you seen people turn down properties or accept properties because appliances are supplied or not supplied?
Yeah, I've seen it, but in the back, I always keep in the back of my mind too that these properties may not even be reaching their search criteria, because whenever they're searching for properties, they're saying yes on washer and dryer, so ours aren't even showing up in their list.
Yeah.
So we don't even know how many people we're losing based on that.
So if they go to a real estate agent, say, or a lease locator and say, I need help finding a place to rent in Austin, and that lease locator is worth their salt, they're going to say, do you need appliances? And they're going to say, I don't own appliances, so I need places with appliances. Therefore, they set that search criteria, and if one of your properties does not have them, they don't even get seen.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Wow,
so
that's
make sure it's coming up on all those searches.
Yeah.
So, you know, people are going to think that you can negotiate anything at any time. And the truth is that the speed of these tenants is pretty quick. I'm in town for 2 days. I want to see 5 properties. I'm not marrying it. I'm just dating it. So give me a place to live that's clean and affordable, and I'll figure out the rest when I get my feet on the ground. So have you guys seen people taking the time on a Saturday to negotiate about appliances and go through that discussion, or are they just kind of picking and rolling?
I mean, I have had both. Some people want to negotiate and see if an owner will put in an appliance. If not already, I mean, we've already probably said to the owner, yeah, we probably need to have this in there. So it does happen on occasion that they want to negotiate, but I've had people turn down properties because an owner wouldn't put in a fridge.
Which, let's say it's 100 days, the cost on the market, by the time you get management, maintenance, headache, everything else, lost revenue, you could have put those in all the way through and owned them with 2 weeks on the market.
Correct. Yeah. Correct.
Frustrating for you guys, because you're trying to do the right thing, but yet people are not financially supporting you and spending twice as much money and sitting vacant.
We do try to provide that data. You know, we're going to sit longer on the market. You know, if you just put in the refrigerator, but you know.
Yeah, we're competing with in Austin anyways, and I'm sure other major cities, these luxury high-rise condos that are
Exactly.
going in and that are including all of these appliances and amenities. And so we have to think about that too. You know, we don't want to give other people a reason not to rent our property. So we always try to think, you know, realize, yeah, we're competing with these other brand new properties that have all these things. Like, why would they want to pick our property over that?
Yeah.
Makes sense to me. So next thing is, you asked tenants, what advanced home features would you be willing to pay for in addition to your rent? So something that they want, they would pay to be included, but is not currently included in the rent. What did you find out?
We had a couple different responses. We had all around the same percentage: security system, cable and internet, appliances when they weren't already supplied, and lawn maintenance. So that lawn maintenance came up again. But yeah, they want to be able to have security systems that are already paid for, cable and internet that they don't have to pay extra for. Well, advanced home features that you would be willing to pay.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting. I mean, those types of things are important to renters, and I understand why. I mean, you gotta have that stuff.
So the interesting thing I'm pulling out of this is that cable internet was one of the responses. You know, all these are rather low because the consensus is that people are not willing to pay for additional services. That's the main consensus I'm getting, because these aren't in the 90s, these are below 10%. So in other words, I'm not paying for anything extra, but a couple people are willing. What I find interesting is the challenge on single family residential long-term, in which there's generally no Wi-Fi or anything included. And then short-term rentals, where all the electricity and everything's included, because when you have that internet service, you can have smart homes.
Yeah.
But when you have a long-term rental and you may not have electricity or internet, you can't have a smart home because, well, I can't regulate that now when it's vacant.
Yeah.
Somebody has to pay for that, and it becomes a setup issue. And is it up? Is it down? Oh, geez, the key isn't working. So it's really interesting that this many people want stuff, but the vast majority are just not willing to pay for it. So the next one we've got is, what makes a good rental property? So what did your tenants think was important to them?
So we took this question as this is once they're already in the property. So the biggest thing that was important to them was maintenance and keeping the property in good condition. That was 35%. So that's huge. It's super important to these tenants that we're keeping the property in the best condition that we can. And then the second one was management and communication. So that was almost 32%. Again, two huge things that are super important: maintenance and communication. And then the third biggest one was location of the property at almost 23%. So this is a little bit different, and we're going to get to it in a little bit, but it's a little bit different to what people are looking for, you know, when they're looking for a property, not once they're actually in it. So yeah, again, maintenance, communication, and location.
Yeah.
So they want maintenance to be taken care of quickly, and they don't want to have the headache of, you know, having to schedule multiple vendors and it taking a long time. We see a lot of unhappy tenants when home warranties are involved, just because that's another, you know, it's a fourth person now we're having to get involved, and then we have to wait for them to schedule the vendor. The vendors that they actually schedule aren't usually the best people to use. They're just really subpar, and then whether or not the home warranty is going to approve the work that's actually needed and not just putting Band-Aids on it, and then a month later the tenant having the same issue again. So that's the biggest thing that we've seen. And but we found that just good management in general is more important than location. So
which is astonishing.
Yeah, it is. They care. They want us to care.
Yeah.
So what I find interesting about that is, when you go home, if your home is not your safe place, your whole life doesn't feel balanced and healthy. You don't feel good inside. And so, you know, all of us in life have challenges, whether they're health or whether they're marriage or financial or whatever it may be. But I think a lot of people can relate to the fact that when you come home, if it's not your safe place, if it's not calm, if you don't feel good about it, you don't feel good. And I can only imagine that if you had a landlord that you constantly disagreed with or disliked, how you would feel about the home you live in. And thus, you're going to have challenges just kind of going forward, because you're never going to feel at peace while you're in that home, as long as you have that disconnect or dislike for your landlord. It's probably going to push you to move. The other thing astounding here is that people are more interested in a good condition, not renovated and fabulous, and just proper maintenance. If something's broken, fix it. Fix it quickly. Fix it the first time. Don't fix it 5 times. Don't send a lousy person. So you guys are talking a lot about home warranties. I know that a lot of consumers feel that, you know, home warranties, because they get them free, is the answer to all their woes when they get a new investment property. I have a home warranty, so this should be really easy for you to manage, and thus I'm giving you a cookie. I'm giving you a benefit. What's your relationship been with home warranty companies, your experience?
It just doesn't work like that. It might work okay if it's an owner-occupied property, but not with a tenant in place. Like Melanie said, that we've had many, many, many cases where the vendors just don't show up, or they don't show up prepared. And then your tenant's the one staying home from work, possibly missing their pay to wait for this vendor that's not prepared, you know, having multiple visits before it might actually get fixed. There's a wait time between the vendor assessing what needs to be done and then getting approval from the home warranty to see if that's approved to be done. Then they come back to actually fix it, which it might not even happen. I mean, it might not even work. So your tenant's the one sitting at that home, unhappy, waiting, possibly losing their own money. You're just making them more and more angry. And then it's just not worth it. You might save $50 on a repair, maybe, but you've just made your tenant mad, and now they don't want to renew. You know, it might work better if it's an owner-occupied property and you're willing to wait, but not when it's a rental, in our opinion.
So from the other studies I've read and numerous industry information, one of the biggest challenges that landlords have regarding property managers is they have a fear that property managers will not use cost-effective vendors, that they don't care about the bottom line. They just choose somebody. They burn through the owner's money without regard. What do you guys do when it comes to selecting vendors? What does that look like in your world?
Yeah, we've got a whole vendor packet that we send to vendors. We have standards that they need to agree to. We fire vendors if we find that they've got too high of costs. So we work really closely with vendors that we've vetted, that we know that are insured, that they stand behind their work. If they've done something wrong, they're going to come back and fix it for you, that know how to treat tenants, that are going to call ahead and be respectful. It's important that we work with people that are willing to work with us and understand how rentals are. It's important for us. And we also have a maintenance limit as well for all of our owners. So we have a set number. This is what we'll go to. We have our approved vendors that we've worked with. We know the cost of things. We've seen it so many times. So we understand what vendor, hey, you know what, this vendor is better at doing this. Let's get them out there. They're cost effective. We know they can get out there quickly. And we'll work under that maintenance limit. But if that work is going to go over that limit, we're going to talk to the owner. We're going to explain them the situation, see how they would like us to proceed. So we have that kind of covered for owners because we work with so many vendors that we trust.
Yeah, and you just mentioned, and Matt mentioned at the beginning that, you know, how many properties have we managed in the time that we've been working here? So we know when we receive an estimate, if, like, does this price look right? Is this comparable to what we've seen for other properties? And so we can vet that, even the estimate that we get or the invoice after the work is done. So we can say, you know what, we're not going to use that vendor next time because they just charged way too much, or we got this estimate that looks a little high. We're just going to go ahead and look for another estimate because we know, it costs this much for these 10 other properties that we had the same issue with, versus someone that might be self-managing onesie twosies. They're not going to have that experience of how much something should actually cost. So that comes up a lot.
Well, it seems like if I do the math on the size of your portfolio and I compare that to an air conditioner or HVAC system, of course, or a hot water heater, you guys are, if those last 10 years, which is their expected lifetime, you guys are basically replacing one HVAC system and one hot water heater almost every week.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That means you're doing a new roof at least once a month, if not a little bit more than once a month by the volume that you guys see. So that's pretty significant. And I don't think owners come to you. I know they've got one property. They're really scared. This is the only time that HVAC has gone out. They lived there for 100 years and they never had a single problem with it. But you guys are doing this literally once a week. So you've got a really good feel for it based upon that volume, at least from the math that I put together.
Yeah. And just price comparison also in Austin versus someone that might live in Utah.
That's true.
They might have just replaced their HVAC system in Utah, so then they see this Austin estimate and think, it's crazy. So it's just that perspective also.
That's a very good point. Each of the cities in Texas is very different when it comes to pricing, when it comes to labor, cost of living. I'm very familiar with Houston area, and I know that the last time I visited there, we drove around just to see some old places, and the cost of the real estate alone was almost exactly half of the cost of the same property in Austin. So we looked at some places next to downtown, we call it Midtown area, that were 3 stories with a rooftop deck, and they were selling for, I think, $450,000. And in Austin, if you could find it, it's $1 million.
Exactly.
They just don't even exist with that quality. So I think people don't really take that into account, that Austin traffic is brutal. And so where Houston, you may have in a large corporation 8 locations to cover the city so that your drive time is reasonable. In Austin, typically a company will have 1 or 2 locations. You guys are located at the center of the city, so you can operate against traffic. But Austin traffic is brutal. And so if that technician has to go out to the property just to see what's wrong, they can easily spend 1 to 2 hours in traffic without ever getting out of their vehicle. Now they've still got to investigate the problem. So, if that technician's paid and the company makes, per se, $75 an hour, it's plausible you could have a $225 bill for an hour of work, because that's what it takes to get through traffic in Austin.
Yeah, I do hate the traffic.
Yeah, well, and Austin's just interesting in that way, but the cost is definitely different, especially if you're looking at somebody that has general liability insurance, experience, that's going to be in business tomorrow, that's got some kind of reviews online because they didn't just open up shop with a truck and drive down the street. It costs a little bit of money to get it done right, but those people always come back. So let's keep going on today so we don't drag this out too far for people. What do you expect from your property manager or landlord? You guys ask that of tenants because you want to know what they want from you that keeps them happy. So what did they tell you?
56% said responsiveness and communication. They want to know that we care. That when they have a problem, they want to know that we are here to help them and solve their problem. Almost 25% said maintenance. They want to make sure that we're actually maintaining the property when there's a problem. Yeah. So
what you're telling me is the most important thing that you can deliver to them is quick, effective, professional communication. Exactly. And that's what matters. That's what's going to keep a tenant happy and in place. And that's our goal, is to do everything we can to make that tenant want to stay. They might have other things in their lives that might make them move, but we don't want anything that has to do with the property, the maintenance, us
to make them want to move. So
we can control.
Anything we can control, yeah. We would like to be able to make sure that they are happy and they feel heard. It's where they live. It's their home. If they feel like they're not being listened to or their concerns are not being addressed, they're going to find somebody else that will. So it's very important that we make sure that we are as quick as possible with helping our tenants, and we communicate with them, not just when there's problems, but just, you know, with these types of surveys too. So we make sure that we're meeting our tenants' needs.
So a typical landlord would have a day job per se. Let's say they're not retired. They're still investing. They've got a day job, and a plumbing supply line breaks at 2 a.m. I don't know about you guys, but when I go to bed at night, I have to turn my phone off because you get alerts on everything under the sun, robocalls, everything else. So you can't have your phone on in the middle of the night and actually sleep anymore, unfortunately. What does your business system look like so that at 2 a.m. on Christmas Day, you can give that responsiveness and communication?
So yeah, we've got our regular office hours, but so that way we can also maybe have a life after work. We've got our after hours emergency maintenance line that our tenants know that they can call. And the emergency maintenance line is also going to vet the issue and try to troubleshoot it with them and determine if it truly is an emergency. And if it is, then they're going to be the ones calling around trying to find the quickest vendor that can go out there, and then getting the vendor out there and coordinating that with the tenant. So while we're at home and enjoying watching Netflix, we've got our after hours emergency maintenance line taking care of things like this. So like you mentioned, if as someone that's self-managing, they have their full-time job already. Yeah. That's not managing the property, and then something does come up. Do they really want to have to deal with stuff like this after they get off work when they're trying to be at home and relax? I wouldn't think so. So that is our full-time job, is taking care of the properties and being able to get this stuff done, hopefully during business hours. And then if something comes up, and it most likely will, then we've got the systems in place that the tenants can take advantage of to make sure it gets taken care of and keep them happy.
Yeah. So let's run through the scenario again. We've got a supply line that breaks behind a toilet. Yep. It's on the second story of the house. The tenant can't turn it off, and so now it's flooding the house. It's 2 a.m. on Christmas Day. Mm-hmm. What does your maintenance team do with that at 2 a.m.?
Yeah, well, they will find somebody available to help. They really will. So we have a bunch of vendors on that we have on staff, so that they can call and see who's available, who can get out there the quickest. They will talk to the tenant, turn off whatever you can to prevent more damage to the property, start drying the property, and we're going to get somebody out there as quick as humanly possible to start solving the issue. Mitigate the damages and repair it so it doesn't happen again. Yeah. Yeah.
So they're going to call around for vendors in the middle of the night, document the condition, record the phone call.
Record the phone call. Yeah, we do have that.
Have you ever had tenants say one thing on the phone and another the next day?
Oh, all the time. Oh, wait, hold on. We got that recorded.
So it sounds kind of interesting. Well, let's keep on moving today. So next one is, what reasons would you choose one rental over another? So they don't know at this point whether the manager's great. They don't know if the property is well maintained. They don't know anything except they did a drive-by. Mm-hmm. So what's important to them?
So location and price. Those are the two top things, and we've kind of already known this. That's going to narrow down their search criteria to give them that, few list of properties to go actually see, and then from there, from what we know, they're going to pick the property based on condition. But location was 30%, and that's something you can't change. Yeah. So it's, your house is where you're at, and hopefully you bought an investment property that's in a good location that's desirable for people. And then price was 19%. So yeah,
they want a well-priced home too. Yeah. So if it's not well priced, then I gotta make it.
So I've heard you guys say over and over to people, location, price, and condition, but location's not a variable; it's fixed. So people are saying right now, 20% of them price is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that is going to be your variable. If your home is not leasing and we have walked it and given you the gold seal of it's perfect,
Yes.
that's the only variable left. Now, if we tell you it's not perfect, then we can talk about that. But
Right. You either have to get the condition up to where it needs to be, or you need to price it accordingly. And we want the condition to be great, because that's going to attract the best kind of tenant that's going to take care of your property. You don't want the property to be a mess, because that attracts a mess. So we need the property in good condition. And if it's in good condition, that's great, but you still have to make sure it's priced right.
Yeah.
They're going to go down the street and say, well, that's in the same location and the condition's just as good, but that price is lower. I want that one.
Yeah.
You need to get it to the comparables in the area. So, and that's what we do. We look at the MLS, we're looking at what has leased, and we see what the property should be leased at. We give recommendations until we're blue in the face on what the property should be priced at to be able to get a tenant as soon as possible.
so looking at the answer being price that we're discussing leads us right into the next question. What would impact you to renew your lease versus moving? What was the answer?
Price. Shocking. But they don't want the rent to go up. I mean, tenants will move if the price increase is too high. The actual wording of this is price decrease or stay the same. They would actually like the price to go down if possible. It's not always going to happen, but it could stay the same. So an owner needs to consider, is it really worth raising the rent when it comes renewal time? It might not be. Because again, you're going to get this turnover. If you jack the rent up $100 a month, that's might be too expensive for your tenant. So you're going to have to find a new tenant all over again, get new leasing fees again, make ready utilities, all of that all over again, when you could have just stayed the rent the same and you avoided all of that.
Yeah, and so what's an owner to do? Because an owner tries to max. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, 70% of people said that, by the way.
Yeah.
So it's an overwhelming majority that are saying, what would make me stay? Keep the price the same.
Yeah.
That's probably one of the most definitive responses you've had so far. So what's an owner to do who wants to maximize their income? What would you suggest to that owner to maximize their comprehensive income? If I can't raise the rent, what am I supposed to do?
I mean, God, you just have to keep the property maintained. I mean, as long as you're maintaining the property, I think you're going to have a good, people are going to stay. You're not going to have all that turnover.
Yeah, it seems like the turnover is the hidden benefit, because if your tenants are staying and you're not making $30 more a month, which is $360 at the end of the year, but you're avoiding a turnover, which is $3,600 a year, it seems like you're not going to see the money coming in monthly, but what you're going to not see is that turnover expense in three ways: leasing fees, vacancy, and then make ready costs. It's not as much of a what are you getting is what are you avoiding, which is much more expensive than the little change you would get. I mean, come on, $360 at the end of the year shouldn't make or break you in this endeavor. It's important, it's money. But goodness, if you're that tight, maybe this isn't the right endeavor for you. But $3,600 left in your pocket, well, that's not so bad.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
Yeah, and I mean, unless the market has dramatically changed, which maybe 5-6 years ago it was, but recently we've seen that the market has kind of just plateaued, and it's not worth losing the tenant over.
No.
So a lot of times though, we'll offer a renewal at what we think is fair, and the tenant tells us they don't want to renew, and we don't ever find out why they didn't want to renew. So they just don't really like sharing that information, unfortunately. Sometimes. So
we tried it. We try to figure out what was the reason, just so we can know. We want to know, was it the price? Okay, then we can talk about that.
Yeah. So yeah, you just have to think about the cost that you could potentially be losing in offering a renewal rate that's too much and that the tenant can't afford.
Yeah.
Versus keeping the tenant in place and maybe not raising the rent.
So I know we've got a couple more to go over, but I think what you're touching on is something also that possible investors don't see.
Yeah.
So from my experience, what I have heard is that there's a number of companies who, because it's cost effective, outsource rental rate increases and just have an automated letter sent to the tenant with an automated percentage pulled out of thin air, and the tenant either says yes or no, and life goes on because that serves the property management company well, which, you know, nobody in that industry likes that bad name, but maybe they deserve it. What do you guys do when it's renewal time? Are you just sending out a renewal and going $50 because $50 is easy? What is your process?
No, we're going to run comps. We're going to look at the area. We're going to look at other properties that have leased and what are they going for to come up with a fair renewal price. But again, you want to make sure if you're going to raise the rent, not so dramatically that it's going to scare the tenants away. But we're going to do that extra work to be able to see what's fair, not just a blanketed renewal for everybody, because that's might not be the case for that area. It might be you're already at the top of the market. So if you put it back on the market, you actually might accept less. So we need to make sure that we're keeping it fair for that property and what's smart, so we can avoid that turnover for the owner.
And we're using comps, which is, you know, some may not know, but Texas is a non-disclosure state. So you can't use websites like Zillow that aren't going to have the most accurate information. Correct. Because they don't, you know, the owners or the self-managed properties didn't disclose that information. So,
do you find Zillow accurate, inaccurate, and which direction and how much?
Inaccurate. It's usually too much. It's too high based on what we're seeing, and could be hundreds of dollars.
Yeah, seriously. And actually, if you even look at Zillow, it even says like a confidence score, and it says for like Texas, like it has 0 confidence in what it's guessing for Texas. You just look, it states it on the website. So it might be more accurate for other states that they disclose that information to a company like Zillow, but not for Texas. So
yeah, I think California is required disclosure, so it's probably perfect there, or as accurate as it could be there. But Texas is definitely the other end of that. Okay, so considering your complete experience with 1836, how likely would you be to recommend your friends to us or write a positive review online? That's kind of a scary question to ask, because you're the property manager. You're the bad guys, right? You find them, you make them paint back the room that they shouldn't have painted. You tell them what they can and can't do. How did this turn out for you? Because this sounds kind of tough.
We were surprised, but 80% were likely to refer us. So yeah, which, like you said, we pretty much are the bad guys. We're taking their money. We're telling them no when they want to do things. We're making them pay for things that maybe they didn't want to have to pay for. But 80% were, 79% was still likely to refer us, which is awesome.
Because we also want them to, we want them to know we're working with them. We're not like this. Yes, we do unfortunately have to say no sometimes, but we like to explain why it's not just because I said so, but we want to work with them so they know we're on their side, really, ultimately, because we want them to be happy and we never want them to leave. So I'm glad that they are likely to recommend us.
So I think this is the last question you guys had on your survey, and we've got some fun things for people just to recap at the end here. What are 3 things that you can do better as a landlord or as a property manager to keep tenants longer? So this was kind of was this an open answer question? Is this they could put in whatever they wanted, so they could deliver ice cream if they wanted? Yeah,
128 total responses, so they got to write in whatever they wanted.
Oh, I bet that was fun. All right, well, what are people saying?
Okay, so 22% said not increasing the rent.
So I'll stay longer if you just leave the rent as it is. So nobody asked for a free month. Yeah. They just said, stop killing me.
Yes, exactly. No more price hikes. 17% responsiveness.
Which is interesting because that's so close to rent. So you would think money, 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 right? These people are renting. Maybe they don't have money. Maybe they're not saving money, money, money. But really, responsiveness is important to them.
Yeah, they want to know
almost as important as the money.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's important. So you got to make sure that that you are responsive to a tenant, and we do this all day, every day. That's what we're here for. So owner managed properties, you might not be able to respond as quickly, and that's understandable, but that's what we're here for. We're here to keep your tenant happy, because this is what they care about. They want to be heard.
So what else did they want? 128 people, that's a lot. What else what are they looking for?
10% wanted updates to the property. So, that, like we said earlier, that they would like to be able to customize their home, and they want to be able to update it if they want. So they'd like to have updates if possible. So, it's always something we can take a look at. It depends on what it is. But it's only 10%, but more than 1% said it.
What's impressive about that is they didn't say renovate the property. They didn't say give me something for free because they're paying their rent. What they said is update. So in other words, if the carpet is circa 1980, they just want it updated to today. They're not asking for superior grade wood floors or something. But the backstory on that is that owners putting that money into their properties not only keep their tenants longer, now the property is worth more. Exactly. So it's not an expense that you're burning money on. You are putting that money into something which now goes up in value, and the tenant stays longer. So it's really, depending on what it is, obviously if it's a jacuzzi, it may be a different story, or swimming pool. But if you're putting in new flooring or new, just light fixtures,
correct,
it's going to pay for itself.
Exactly. It's an investment still, ultimately, and when it goes back on the market, you want it to be able to be attractive to a new tenant too.
You're going to end up putting it in anyway. You might as well do it with the tenant in place, the one that you have, versus throwing that tenant away and having to fix it for the next one that you don't know if you're going to get.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Wow. Okay. Well, it sounds like it's important then to look at options during the tenancy to see if you can update things when cash is flowing, not at the toughest time of your timeline when you have no cash flowing and you're getting sucked dry for mortgages that you're paying with no income and maintenance and turnover. Why not just do some of these updates with the tenant in place?
Yeah, I know they'll be happy.
Yeah, and then they get to see the progress. So now, who doesn't want to live in a nice home?
Yeah, of course. Of course.
Awesome. Well, those are really good. So let's give some folks, we've just got about 5 minutes left. Let's give some folks some fun stuff to go over. So you guys have been doing this forever. This is what you do on a daily basis. So entertaining to people that are not landlords and don't know what to expect, because, hey, how hard is it, right? My real estate agent helped me find somebody to rent the home. They moved in, no problem. Now, I haven't been back from California to Texas to see the home in a couple years, but I don't hear much from them. So things are going right. I don't have anything to worry about. They pay rent on time. So what unusual requests have you guys heard from tenants that you would say expect to hear these at some point if you're going to self-manage?
Mm-hmm. The biggest one I've seen is rent credits for just regular maintenance. So again, these tenants aren't wanting to be inconvenienced by anything. No. They want the property maintained, but they also kind of feel like because something broke and they can't use the property to its full potential, now they deserve a rent credit, which we try to explain to them, like, maintenance is going to happen. It's unavoidable. And it's kind of funny, but at my house that I own, I'm not going to ask my mortgage company to give me a credit because my water heater went out.
They don't care.
No, they don't care.
No, they don't care. And so when you're having to give a credit to the tenant for something breaking, that's essentially you having to now pay more towards your mortgage because you said yes to that. Mm-hmm. So it's understandable if something might be taking longer than it usually would. But again, that's what we do every single day. We know how to prevent things like that from happening. We have the vendors on staff that just we know are going to get there quickly and do it right the first time. So rent credits for just general maintenance is one of the biggest things.
It sounds like this would really come up during the summer when the AC is broken and somebody wants 5 different bids for an AC repair, and the tenant's sitting there sweating for 2 weeks when it's 101 outside, and the owner is sitting somewhere in the AC trying to avoid spending money. I can't think of a better case for a rent credit than just simply delaying, because there's no statute in Texas, to the best of my knowledge, that says you owe them anything as long as you're doing your job properly, which means attempting to get this repaired in a timely manner.
Yeah. And asking for 5 estimates is not attempting to get it fixed.
So let's run down some of these other ones real quick. Okay. So what else do you have that you've heard from tenants?
We've heard there's a house down the street that is renting for this much. Can you price match that?
So what do you tell them?
Well, if it's on the market, we have to make sure that we've already priced it at that comparable rate. Or if we're at a renewal time, we are at a fair market rate when we are renewing them. So you don't want to jump it too high, but you want to make sure you're along with the market. You don't want to be priced like well above, but something else down the street is well below. Yeah, they're going to pick that one first, of course. So we get that a lot. What else we got?
Waiving late fees. So these are kind of funny sometimes whenever they come up, because I've had, I forgot. Can you just waive my late fee? It's due on the 1st every month. How can you forget? Their pay periods didn't match up to where they could pay rent on time. So is that okay if I pay late and you waive my late fees? They had an unexpected bill that came up. But maybe for some reason that was more important than their rent. I'm not sure why. So just waiving late fees we get it almost every single month.
Oh yeah, but we deal with it all the time. So we understand how to answer.
So why wouldn't you just waive late fees? Because you're nice people.
We have to be fair to everybody. If you've got a sob story over here, but this one doesn't, we're going to waive your late fee for your sob story. Like we have to be fair with everybody. It's the only way to do this. It's the right thing to do. So
fair enough. So what else do you hear?
Trip charges. I put in a maintenance request. I scheduled with the vendor, told them I would be there, but then I wasn't there. Why do I have to pay for that trip charge for the vendor to come out or to come back out? Well, because you scheduled it and somebody's got to pay for their time. The owner shouldn't have to be responsible for that.
Again, they sat in traffic for 2 hours to get to your property to show up and find that you're not there.
Oh, yeah. But waive it for me. Happens a lot. Yep.
Tenant-related repairs. A lot of tenants don't want or don't agree that they have to pay for things that they caused. So most of them are garbage disposal issues. They didn't know that they couldn't put chicken bones down the sink in the garbage disposal and jam it up and then not know how to unjam it themselves. So now we have to hire a licensed plumber to come out and unjam this garbage disposal.
Yeah,
that's the biggest one.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that one. We also get early departure requests. I signed my lease. I know I don't move out until June of this year, but I got other plans, so I'm just going to end the lease next week. Is that okay? No.
It's okay, right?
No, it's not okay. This is a legal document that you have signed, and we have processes for everything, but we've got this in place, so when that question comes in, we already know how to handle it. And we make the tenant follow certain processes for amicably ending a lease or not. This is how it has to happen. So no, you just can't end it tomorrow because you want to and you feel like it.
So the next one from the notes you guys shared with me, the appliances, that looks like we kind of already covered that.
Oh yeah, we did.
You can negotiate with them, and something you guys had brought up the other day that was really smart is when a tenant says, why aren't there appliances? You could say, we might be able to add them, work it out with the owner and increase their rent. But honestly, the fact that you're not even going to see that property available because it didn't have appliances, and that was one of the check boxes, your criteria, I think the owners are shooting themselves in the foot at this point in time. If you don't have a washer, dryer, refrigerator in place, like you're out of date with what's going on in the marketplace if those don't exist. There's no excuse for it anymore. Yes, it costs money. Yes, it's extra maintenance, but that is where we are in 2019. So you're either going to be in 2019 or you're going to be in 1999, and you're going to pay the consequence for it if you don't stay up to date. So the last one, I think, because we're closing in on our time today, what was the last thing you guys hear from?
Utilities. Utilities. Can you tell me how much utilities are going to be at the property? But I'm going to set the thermostat to like 60 degrees. What is the average utility fee for the month?
I'm going to leave the door open during the summer.
Right. Tell me how much
leave all the lights on when I leave.
That sounds like it comes in from prospective tenants looking at the property and wanting you to predict the future.
Exactly. Yeah. Unfortunately, we're not that good. We can't tell you what it's going to cost for that.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to kind of wrap it up today. Our time has really been great. We've had some nice compliments, and we certainly appreciate everybody that joined us today. Some of the takeaways that I made notes on this is really, you need to maintain the house quickly and effectively. Don't delay repairs. It's just going to cost you thousands of dollars when you lose the tenant, and it still has to be repaired. So you're not going to avoid it. You guys see enough volume. You know if something's right or wrong. And if the owner has concerns, why don't they just pick up the phone and say, Melanie, Erica, talk to me about this. Is this okay? Is it not? Is it normal? Yes or no? You're seeing them once a week over the course of the entire year. So, that's one of the takeaways I got from you guys. Hiring somebody that's a professional, that is skilled in being a property manager, that can effectively communicate so you can treat the tenants like a customer versus an adversary is huge, because you guys are in the middle. An owner who self-manages is juxtaposition from that tenant. And what's in one interest is not in the other interest. And so they're forcing this adversarial relationship where all you guys are trying to do is make everybody happy. And you're living in the middle trying to keep the peace.
Yep.
And I think that gives you a position that is enviable by self-managing landlords, because you can't buy that unless you pay for a property manager that's professional, not just with the title. Last thing I really noticed on here was money. Tenants want you to kind of keep them where they are on their rent. And obviously everybody knows taxes go up, costs go up, but mortgages are typically fixed. And so if your mortgage rate is fixed and maybe your taxes go up $20 a month, and you tell that tenant, hey, I'm not trying to raise your rent, but my taxes went up $20, my expenses went up 20. Can we just raise it 20 so that we're all back at even? I think the tenant's going to understand that versus going in and saying, well, my taxes went up 20 and I want an extra 50.
Right.
Okay, they're not going to emotionally relate to you, and they're going to be upset, let's just use a nice word, the next time the renewal comes up, and they're probably going to go somewhere else because they feel like you're not being fair with them. So I don't think my takeaway is really that tenants want free. They just want to be fair. They don't want you to gouge them every time and force them in a position that they can't win. And if you're treating them well, maintaining the home, and being fair with them on costs, I don't know why they'd ever leave unless a life event happens, birth, death, marriage, things like that. So those are my big takeaways from this. Again, I really appreciate you guys joining us today. The next one we have for these is going to be March 6th at 11:30 a.m. We'll send out some notices, so feel free to subscribe to our Crowdcast channel if you would like to be notified of those, or reach out to us at info@1836realty.com or info@1836propertymanagement.com. The next time what we're going to try to do is have a chat with somebody. If we can get a couple managers lined up and have them talk long-term versus short-term and the benefits of each. And so we'll see what we can get lined up. We'd like to get somebody from outside of Austin so that we can get a perspective from around the U.S. instead of just local people. And as consumers may or may not know, the Austin short-term rental ordinances are kind of a mess, to put it nicely. So let's see what we can get lined up for that. It'll be March 6th, 11:30 a.m. What is the phone number where if somebody wants to get a hold of you guys today, they can get a hold of you?
512-994-4323. We'll be happy to talk with you.
Any closing words?
Thank you for having us.
Yes,
this is awesome. Really, awesome. We appreciate it. So
we hope we were able to give some insight and some knowledge on what we do every day.
And if you have any questions, just reach out. We're happy to help and answer any questions we can. Hope to be able to help some people.
Sounds great. Thanks so much for your time, and we'll see you guys soon.
Awesome. Thank you.